Good afternoon, Class 15. Today we'll be reading Chapter 6 of Swamplandia. It's called Kiwi's Exile in the World of Darkness, and that's the other theme park that started after Swamplandia that's on the mainland. So here's Chapter 6. 40 miles south and west of Swamplandia, as the crow flies, beyond the grid of Army Corps levees and drainage canals, across a triangle of new highways that slide over and under one another like snakes in a warren, was the parking lot of the Loomis World of Darkness, where Kiwi Bigtree sat on the burning hood of a powder blue Datsun and watched with an anthropologist's prudish fascination as his friend VJ packed and smoked a cigarette, which was on list of 23 new mainland vocabulary words that Kiwi had acquired just that week. "Dude?" asked dreamy-eyed VJ. "You want one?" Kiwi shook his head. He did not. He did not think that he did. He watched VJ's work shirt contract, VJ smiling with his eyes shut. "Come on, Margaret me, get over here and have one with me. Seriously, bro, it trips me out when you just watch like that." "No thanks. Listen, please don't call me that." He was trying very hard not to respond to Margaret, although since this was the only name by which his colleagues in the World of Darkness knew him, Kiwi worried that he might come across as a little aloof. Somebody, probably VJ, had discovered a copy of Coming of Age in Samoa in Kiwi's work locker. It's a book. And introduced the book as a break room conversation piece. It was Yvonne's, his Trinidadian co-worker, who turned to the picture of a scowling Margaret Mead in her grass skirt and palm leaf hood, kneeling between two Samoan girls with her field notes in hand, and rechristened him as Margaret. Now everybody in the world knew him as Margaret or Margie Mead, although recently some of the girls had shortened this to M&M, a trend that Kiwi was trying to encourage. M&M was an improvement. M&M could stand for all kinds of mysterious things, much less emasculating things. Macho, maybe that was a little too on the nose, Kiwi conceded. The important thing here was the abbreviation M&M didn't automatically equate Kiwi Bigtree with the encyclopedia photograph that Yvonne's had taped above Kiwi's locker of a middle-aged woman with jungle foliage. VJ was inhaling deeply and rhythmically. He was becoming a conscious participant in his own respiratory process, he said. "Say what you will about our jobs, Margine," VJ said, exhaling, "but at least the world's got air conditioning." The World of Darkness got shortened to the World, as in, "Hey Kiwi, hook me up. Clock me out of the world, yay?" "Yeah, and what do you fools want to do when we get out of the world?" Everybody did this, Kiwi included, although to Kiwi the abbreviation felt dangerous. There was something insidious about it, the way it crept into your speech and replaced the older, vaster meanings. The world now signified a labyrinth of depressing stucco buildings that fed into a freezing airplane hangar. Neon tubing in the vaulted roof of the Leviathan made the place feel modern. When the lights came on after hours, Kiwi had the same melancholy feeling that used to strike him when he waded ankle-deep into the pulpy napkins and styrofoam cups that littered the stadium floor on Swamplandia. The owners of this franchise of the World of Darkness had filled the hangar with evil rides, evil water fountains, smoke machines, and unconvincing robots. Kiwi got paid $5.75 an hour to work as part of an army of teenage janitors, park greeters, security officers, customer service reps, costumers, janitors, all of them gum chewers, deodorized for war. There were plenty of adults too, but the worst work seemed to be reserved for the younger, summertime employees. That morning, Kiwi had aced his first test, the new employee quiz. "You could use your employee manual to look up an answer if you forgot it," said the proctor, his manager, Carl. Kiwi was disconcerted to find that many of the questions were worded like unfunny knock-knock jokes. Question: what do you call a guest to the World of Darkness? Answer: a lost soul. Question: what maneuver should you perform during a choking incident? A, the Heimlich maneuver. The other choices have been a naval maneuver, the Hoover maneuver, and no maneuver. Kiwi had been pushing brooms in the world for weeks now, and the only other employee besides VJ with whom he'd become friendly was Yvonne's Parmasad, a Trinidadian man with Tabasco red veins in his eyes and so many young children that he often got their names confused. "Lend me some money, Kiwi. Today it's Tam's birthday." Their friendship commenced when Evans pointed out to Kiwi a particular lost soul, a stunning woman on crutches in a red sundress, Kiwi's age, and then very casually proceeded to detail the things that he would like to say to her. On their first day on duty together, Evans announced that he would handle the hard stuff, tasks rated as difficult by Evans, including counting the cash drawer and improving the retail experience of the female customers. Kiwi could do the easy stuff, defined by Evans as plunging the toilets and running the gleaming armadillo-beveled nozzle of a futuristic vacuum over the carpeted walkway that constituted the tongue of the Leviathan. Yeah, thought Kiwi, tugging out a fat knot in the vacuum cord with his incisors. The easy stuff, real simple. Kiwi looked over with a spurt of envy to the Devil's Oven, the baked goods stand where Evans worked, ostensibly selling baked goods, although at this particular moment Evans appeared to be making some kind of visual analogy for a female customer using a container of pretzels and hot cheese. How has he not been fired, Kiwi wondered. But then the short Italian woman Evans was talking to began giggling and scribbling something on a paper fished out of her purse. She let Evans feed her a pretzel. Kiwi resisted the urge to document this baffling progression on his notepad. His note-taking seemed to make his fellow workers uncomfortable. And Carla Garcia Fournier, a black girl with a smattering of beautiful acne on her nose, had asked Kiwi very seriously if he was some kind of serial killer. Inside the world of darkness, time happened in a circle. Shifts were 9 hours, and the hours contracted or accordioned outwards depending on several variables that Kiwi had cataloged: difficulty of task, boredom of task, degree to which task humiliates me personally. For a while, all Kiwi had to do was vacuum in the anonymous, many-peopled solitude of the front hall. Then he messed up that sweet gig. Kiwi made wide orbits with the industrial vacuum cleaner, which trembled and belched in repose like a rodeo bull. On the first day of his third week, he ran over his own shoelaces with it and broke it in a way that he couldn't ignore, hide, or repair. Uh-oh, Kiwi thought. Kiwi glanced around the world and considered ditching the vacuum in a different hallway to distance himself from the truly alarming sounds it was making, a grrr like the prelude to fire or explosion. A group of Catholic schoolgirls in mauve and navy blue checkerboard skirts froze in front of the Vesuvius blast-off, just outside the mock-up of a charred Italian village. They began to scream, one after the other like bells tolling, their braids and faces bright spots of fever among the waxy Pompeian mannequins. Sorry, children, Kiwi Big Tree waved at them from inside a cloud of smoke. It's my first day. He used this first day excuse at least 3 times hourly since his actual start date, 2.5 weeks before. BJ didn't know how to fix the vacuum either. He knelt and touched the vacuum cleaner's bag sorrowfully as if it were the belly of a crippled horse. And Kiwi felt that in a different epoch, he and VJ could have been El Paso ranch hands together. BJ shoots the horse and romances all the saloon women, and I am the wimpy sidekick. Yes, in the movie I Am the Ranch Hand, slated for death in a midnight raid, I jump into a barrel of rattlesnakes or small cactuses or something, trying to escape. A bullet makes a hole in my hat. The crowd loves it. Hey, did you hear me, Margie? VJ was staring up at him. I said, just tell Carl. He's not going to fire you. Kiwi's manager was a baby-faced young man named Carl Jenks. Carl Jenks was 37 years old. His oldest sister taught astronomy to undergraduates at Dartmouth College. He himself had a master's degree in some undisclosed discipline. He'd offer these facts to anyone who approached him, like a caterer with a tray of bitter hors d'oeuvres. He was always reading fantasy books with orcs and orc princesses on the cover. Why did these orc princesses look like human women? Kiwi wanted to ask someone. Was that really likely? In short, Carl was the sort of mainland nerd with whom even Kiwi, with a rare social intuition, knew better than to ally himself. Carl listened to Kiwi's apology with an expression of mild distaste. One thick finger was folded in his paperback book. He was wearing his high school ring, a Florida ring, an ugly garnet stone with a turd shape engraved on it, a manatee, the high school mascot, which caused Kiwi to look down at his own naked, knucklesome fingers in alarm. That's the kind of wedding I want, Kiwi thought. Into a school, not to a mainland academy. Has anybody ever told you have a beautiful smile? Carl Jenks' tone made Kiwi think of iridescent acids. What's so funny? You think it's hilarious to break world equipment that costs more than your weekly salary? No, I'm sorry. I was just thinking of something. How exciting. Let's hear it. I was thinking that I'd like to roll in high school here, to go to college. School, right. How old are you, 15? 16? Kiwi straightened to his full height of 6'1". I'll be 18 on September 5th, sir. Ah, you're a dropout and we hired you? Kiwi shook his head. Homeschooled. But not really officially. I mean, we didn't keep in the best touch with the LCPS board. I assume I'll have to take some tests before they let me sign up. Kiwi was really hoping that Carl Jenks would clue him in as to who they might be. Well, gosh, I never would have guessed. You seem like an absolutely brilliant scholar. You speak like an orator. Look at that hair. I thought you were a professor emeritus. Okay, so let's review. You broke the vacuum. What is this, your first week? Your third week? Terrific. Keep up the good work, Big Tree. Kiwi could feel his intelligence leap like an anchored flame inside him. His whole body ached at the terrible gulf between what he knew himself to be capable of, neuroscience, complicated ortholamological surgeries, air traffic control, and what he was actually doing. Why don't you take a crack at the family bathroom, Big Tree? It's disgusting. The world of darkness, there's a dignity gulf between staff and management. Carl Jenks, for example, got to wear a plain black polo shirt, which made him seem like a pope compared to everybody else. Kiwi gotten off relatively easy. At least his janitor's uniform had cap sleeves and a zipper fly. He'd seen a tall kid walking around in a red spandex jumpsuit and death hood, and this in Florida in deep summer. So it's really hot, and he's wearing that outfit. Kiwi's penance was to work overtime, picking up the wetter, less decipherable pieces of trash with his gloved hands. The world's lasers moved in green helixes all around him, a lonely geometry that traveled up and down the entrance to the whale's gullet. Cleaning the family toilet was, by his inexact estimate, 1 million times more degrading than any of his Big Tree duties on Swamplandia. Worse than putting out popcorn fires, worse even than the buckskin costumes and the jewelry. He was trying to flip the clown-nosed plunger inside out with his shoe. Gah, he cried, successful. Success in this instance meant an outpouring of terrible yellow bile from the plunger cap. Good news, Kiwi had a place to live. Employees at the World of Darkness could apply to live in a block of staff dormitories in the basement of the complex. Originally, these were built to house foreign workers, but the recruitment program had been suspended owing to some legal snag, a bit of red tape with immigration. All the Turkish and Bulgarian teenage guest workers had been sent home, and now any employee could pay to live here. Kiwi's dorm, a linoleum cave, came furnished. His room had a bunk, a metal chair, and a desk bolted to the ground, and a dresser with a single enigmatic tube sock in it, the only evidence of his foreign predecessor. A wonky mirror over the dresser gave its features a funhouse wave. The room was a single occupancy, a luxury, he was told by several different women in HR, none of whom lived in these dorms. It was just wide enough for Kiwi to turn in a full circle without touching anything, and the windowless fluorescence made him feel like a submariner. Kiwi had figured out that the dorms were located 2 levels below the central room of the Leviathan, and sometimes he had nightmares of being crushed to death in his bunk. After shifts, he'd stare at the ceiling and take a gloomy pleasure in imagining the chief reading his obituary in the Loomis Register. Employee buried in avalanche of tourists. Aussie would spot it. She'd try to locate Kiwi's ghost with her powers, and Kiwi groaned and pushed his cheek against the metal coils inside his mattress, waited for the thought to float away. Really, it's unproductive to ruminate on that particular problem of our sister's, he told Ava on the night before he left home, by which he meant, it hurts. Aussie's need was like a fire that ate all the oxygen in a room, her love sickness. Regarding fire and oxygen, whatever minor administrative deity in the World of Darkness's pantheon controlled the central AC, he or she liked to keep this basement at a freezing temperature. You could hear the whir of the air conditioner deep in your sleep. Kiwi had dreams in which he crawled along the world's hallways and subterranean pipelines until he discovered a control panel, labeled in buzzing gold letters. Each night he reached out for it and shut off the air to the dormitory vents. Then he'd wake up under 4 blankets with a sense of relief, thinking that he'd switched off the indoor winter. This is not forever, Kiwi would think as he held his breath and plunged one of the World of Darkness latrines with the clown nose suction cup. You are still a genius. You're just a temporary worker. That was the rank that Kiwi had been hired at. Full-time staffers all had their high school diplomas. The HR lady had flicked her dry eyeballs over Kiwi's body and shouted, "Why so loud, ma'am?" "Women's size medium," into an intercom. That means that Kiwi wears a women's size medium, not a men's size. So he's pretty small, or thin at least. "And get me a temporary ID badge." Temporary workers, as opposed to staffers, got paid $1 less and clocked out to take their lunch hour. Temporary workers were uninsured. This meant that if something fell on you, a flaming pretzel or one of the tinted panes from the Leviathan's intestinal slides, you were out of luck. "Why do I have to be a peon in this system?" Kiwi grumbled. "Aw, when you get your high school diploma, they'll make you staff, Margine," VJ said, trying to cheer him. "Please do not call me that." Why were other dudes his age so averse to calling him Eminem? "When I get my high school diploma, I'm going to Harvard." "Ooh, sorry, Mrs. Mead." "Darn, bring me back a sweatshirt." But in the staff cafeteria, Kiwi's colleagues taught him that it was unwise to self-describe as a genius here in the world. It was unwise to mention colleges or hopes. Telling your fellow workers that you were going to Harvard was a request to be teased and ridiculed. The other guys went after him with such vim, another pointless word from Kiwi's SAT box, that afterward he never mentioned college to anyone besides VJ and Carl Jenks, whom he figured he'd need later as a reference. 3 people had to recommend you, apparently. Vance had already offered to write Kiwi a 2-thumbs-up letter if Kiwi continued to cover for him, and to call his wife on Adultery Fridays and say that Vance was going to be in an after-hours conference with Carl Jenks until the moon rose. BJ said that he would sign any letter that Margaret put in front of him. That left Carl himself. Kiwi was more deferential to Carl Jenks than he'd ever been to the chief. He tried to scrub children's vomit from the webbing of the tongue in a way that suggested deep reservoirs of genius. When a 3-year-old lost soul came howling around the corner and knocked over a garbage can of Dante's tamales, which looked like masticated rubies and burned your bare skin, Kiwi rated it. He was monastic, scrupulous. He really hoped that Carl Jenks was keeping track of this. VJ Montanez, Kiwi realized, was actually an angel disguised in smelly A-necks and skunk-striped Adidas breakaway pants. VJ was a wonderful aberration in the world of darkness' social universe. He seemed to feel a sincere fraternal affection for Kiwi, and he defended Kiwi's dorkiness to the other workers, as if Kiwi Bigtree were a country under's protectorate. VJ was an only child. He lived with his mother and his grandmother in what Kiwi judged to be 80 chihuahuas, if you based your estimate on the terrible noises they produced through a door, in a closet-sized apartment on Regal Avenue. And he mentioned right away to Kiwi that he'd always wanted a brother. His father had remarried a white woman, Susanna. Technically, he did have a brother, VJ said. Stephen, breaking the name hard as karate on the syllable. VJ had never met him. VJ's father had relocated that family to Grand Rapids, Michigan. For reasons that Kiwi didn't fully understand, he felt certain that this infant in Michigan was the reason VJ was so kind to him and so unreasonably loyal. VJ was not Kiwi Bigtree's only teacher. Kiwi received many complimentary tutorials from his other colleagues those first weeks. When he used the word pulchritude, a compliment, he insisted on unwitting reference to another janitor's girlfriend. He later found things full of pudding in his work locker, and a new phrase to dissect in his field notes. It's a curse word, etched with a cafeteria knife above the locker gills. When he recited Ode on a Grecian urn, and hoping to impress Nina Suarez, who was wiping cigarette butts out of the whale ashtrays with a rag. Ephraim Lipman happened to overhear him and told everybody on the Leviathan crew that Margaret Mead was definitely gay. No. I like Nina. If people believe that he was sexually attracted to a woolly, goony Ephraim, if people believe that Kiwi desired to see that he really was interested in big-eared Ephraim, in any context, his life in the world of darkness would be over. What was wrong with these Philistines? I read it to Nina because I like her. It's a poem about love. Then Nina herself got wind of this. This skinny Margaret Mead was flirting with her. And now all of Nina's friends who worked in the flippers were boycotting Kiwi, a political strike against his nerdly advances that took the form of girls rolling their exquisitely lashed eyes at Kiwi in the Leviathan. They touched the hair frizzed above their ears as they passed him, as if radioing their disgust. to some central intelligence. To bribe Ephraim Lipman into reversing his river of calumny, Kiwi offered to work overtime for him. Then he started to recite Keats' Ode to Ephraim, believing that the beauty of the poem would be self-evident and exonerate him. "Shoot, Margaret," Ephraim said. His reedy voice was loud enough to echo throughout the coils, the purple foyer to the whale's belly. A few young mothers pushing their whale flute rental strollers looked over disapprovingly. "I do not want to flirt with you, dude. Leave me alone." He gave Kiwi a little push, hard enough to cause Kiwi to fall backward against a mesh trash can. "Guys, come quick. Margaret Mead wants to flirt with me." Every day, Kiwi's colleagues taught him that you could and could not say to another person here on the mainland. This was a little like having snipers tutor you on the limits of the prison yard. "My colleagues, you were encouraged to call your fellow stoned, moose-eyed teenage workers my colleagues," to 16-year-old Nina, who wore her jeans so tight around the plush heart of her butt that sometimes Kiwi had to walk behind the cardboard flames to get himself back together. This egalitarian recommendation did not apply to the management, Kiwi discovered. Carl Jenks could call his staffers anything he liked. Carl's colleagues were mysterious people to whom he communicated via yellow sticky memos and the telephone. Carl Jenks had a habit of referring to all his teenage employees as new hires, until such time as he had to fire them. "Yes, that makes sense," Carl Jenks joked. "Oh, it makes perfect sense that this is staffed by teenagers. If there is hell, I know it's a NASA space station manned by monkeys your age." Kiwi wondered how things had gone for Carl Jenks in high school. His hypothesis was Siberian bad. On the deck of the Titanic bad. On par with Kiwi's early weeks in the world. After his first disastrous lunches in the staff cafeteria, Kiwi began to eat alone. He brought his pimento and cheese sandwiches into the last stall of the men's bathroom, his back against its broken door. The world entrees each had some stupid name. Hellspawn hoagie or Faustian bargain fish tacos. Kiwi marveled at his lunch. How could a hoagie be soggy and incendiary at the same time? His eyes watered in the bathroom mirror. The whole theme park was like a joke that someone had taken too far. The water fountains didn't even work here. VJ had warned him on his first day. They piped in a manufactured salt water. "Get it, bro? 'Cause it's hell." "Yeah, right, I got it." Kiwi's throat burned from getting that particular joke. Why weren't natal dolphins swimming around in the salt water? Why weren't hospitals using the saline solution to save a baby's life or something? When he was brave, Kiwi ate his lunch on the deep end of the jaws. He sat on one of the whale rock-sized plaster molars, a place where any of his colleagues could have approached him. They didn't. But more often, Kiwi slid between the teeth. He slumped as far down as he could go in the spongy maw of rubber mats. The gums were always filling up with rogue bits of trash that the lost souls dropped as they stepped into the Leviathan. Cigarette butts and fold-out park maps, donut holes grouped like tiny Stonehenges. Pretzel paper, once horrifyingly a squid-like blue piece of plastic that got pasted to Kiwi's elbow. Kiwi sat like that, a toothpick speck in the whale's smile, and pretended to read Plato's Republic until his lunch hour was up. Kiwi often had to remind himself that no matter how badly a day could go at work, his present situation was in every way an improvement over his first week on the mainland. He had food now, access to clean toilets. He had money, a dormitory, a few beginning friendships. At night, sometimes he would sit alone in the dorm kitchen and microwave a frozen cheese pizza that he'd purchased at the nearby gas station with his own income. He'd count down the beeps and with a meditative fervor. If anybody had wandered in and seen Kiwi's face in the microwave glass, they would have thought he was having a numinous experience. He ate the gas station pepperoni prayerfully, peeled the mozzarella off in slow ribbons, tore off warm, gooey bites of crust that he swallowed like an animal in the dark. He'd drink a vending machine soda and think to himself, "I've done it," and feel a twinge of uneasiness, because what had he done really? Use the chief's cash to make a purchase? And what was he doing here? Helping, he thought vaguely. He backed away from this thought and let it hang there, a Monet picture, beautifully out of focus. The colors of it were right, the shapes could sharpen and emerge later. He tried not to think too hard about the chief and the girls. the 98 Seths becoming anonymous in their pit because the tourists had lost interest in that particular story. Kiwi had come prepared to disguise his identity, but nobody here ever mentioned the Big Tree Wrestling Dynasty or Swamplandia. Already, everybody had forgotten the origins of the joke about him. They thought his real name was Mead. Anonymity was a very easy goal to achieve in the Leviathan. On weekday nights, he could hear Fat Leonard's heavy breathing coming from a dormitory off the kitchen. His snores came in fusillades, once causing Kiwi to jump up and ding his head on the microwave door. And yet Kiwi felt grateful for even this noise, and for all the small, intolerable irritations of dorm living. Leonard Horriblower was a park greeter, a loud, obnoxious young man who would probably go through life disliked by everyone he met, and never know it. Sometimes Kiwi would look at his reflection in the bathroom mirror they shared and think, "Oh my, I pray that I am not a Leo." Large Leonard, via some athletic self-deception, believed himself to be the most popular employee in the world. He read everyone's behavior backward to fit this thesis. Carl Jenks's open contempt for him became a convivial respect. Kiwi's queasy dislike was shy sycophancy. Yvonne's insults became Caribbean banter, and Nina Suarez and her girlfriend's eye-rolling avoidance of him was just these girls playing hard to get. Ladies love Leo was his auxiliary hypothesis. Even Chief Bigtree, an indigenous swamp dweller, who was actually a white guy descended from a coal miner in small-town Ohio, a man who sat on lizards in a feathered headdress. Even the chief seemed like a genius of self-awareness next to this kid Leonard. Leonard Horriblower was always slapping Kiwi too hard on the back and demanding to be called Leonardo, and cracking up at his own puns, many of which Kiwi would later hear repeated on TV reruns of the canceled sitcom It's a Man's Grand World. "Oh my, you're not even an original jerk. You're a plagiarist of jerks." Kiwi thought Leonard had the worst job in the world. He had to dress up in a whale suit in 100-degree weather and shake the children's hands with his flippers, which were made of a hard, bubbly plastic about the size of car doors. The whale head alone must have weighed 10 pounds. The irony here is that Leo's real-life head was also huge, the size of a moai. VJ sniggered that the foam dome head was probably a snug fit. You have expected sweat to come pouring out of the whale's eye holes. Kiwi had a P.O. box now, a mainland address, and he sent away for brochures from the northern colleges. He began to receive pamphlets in the mail with fall leaves and brunettes in toothpaste-colored turtlenecks, modest castles behind them. These were the New England colleges where he could get a liberal arts education. He had taken the number 23 bus to the public library a few times and checked out a stack of outdated books about the college application process. He left a message for a woman named Jennifer Davies at the LCPS about enrolling for the fall, and written out a short autobiography that he planned to read to her when she called him back on the World of Darkness payphone number. Kiwi's plans to save the park, or at least to forestall bankruptcy to keep the family afloat until August or even September. These plans were off to a sluggish start. He had an envelope of 20s, but it wasn't his salary. He had stolen this money from the chief. This theft had been easy to justify as an investment or an early draw on his inheritance, or as his salary for years of unpaid tribal labor. Rationalizations buzzed inside him as he slid the bills out. "Owed me," these shrill voices in Kiwi droned on, bees swaying in columns in the dark room, until he'd pocketed even the change. Pennies, a lint-like currency, value that collected in corners. He swabbed pennies out of the chief's wallet and trouser pockets. People thought the worst robbers stole the most whole vaults, but it was the smallest denominations that you stole. He wrote later in the field notes. That was the real measure of your greed. Kiwi shook out the envelope, $22.12 now. His thumbs found and pressed the 2 pennies. For some reason, this action made him think of Ava and Ossie. 1, 2. He wanted to save for the girls' college tuition, a doctor or a psychiatrist or something for Ossie. He had drawn up a budget to address the chief's deficits. Ossie would, of course, get priority. But given that he had a job flossing a whale's teeth with a sudsy rope and the lowest salary allowed by law, things were not looking inspiring. Kiwi took out the repayment calendar he had drawn up on Swamplandia and flipped through the weeks ahead of him, erasing the naive numbers, subtracting his state taxes, making adjustments based on phantom increases that he planned to receive to his tiny salary. He hadn't sent any checks home yet, but he had swiped a stack of greeting cards from the World of Darkness gift store. "I'm having a whale of a time," read one. A bug-eyed black woman in her 70s or 80s was caught on camera sliding into the Leviathan, her blue wig a full inch above her head. "It's hell without you," read another, this one of a very confused-looking girl in a cherry pink party dress descending into a hole. "Dear Ava, dear Aussie," he went on, accumulating beginnings. So that's the end of chapter 6. We're only about 1/4 of the way through the book. So in the fall, when we go back to school, we'll continue with chapter 7 and the rest of the book for Read Aloud. I hope you enjoy your vacation, and I'll see you in September. Thank you. Bye-bye.